Welcome back to Hustle to Harmony. Today I'm sitting down with someone who has walked away from the executive fast track to redefine what freedom looks like for him. But not just for himself, for hundreds of others around the world. Lon Stroschein is the founder of Normal 40, a movement and community for midlife professionals ready to make what he calls the trade. That's letting go of the life you've outgrown to create the one you actually want. He's also the author of the powerful book, The Trade, and the voice behind an inspiring Substack that's helping people around the world challenge the idea that more hustle equals more happiness. In this conversation, we're going deep on what happens when you start listening to that quiet voice telling you there's something more, and actually what it takes to build a life that feels true, fulfilling, and fully yours. You are not going to want to miss this episode. My name is Kevin. I'm the host of Hustle to Harmony. Let's dive in. You know, I think there's a lot of pursuit of happiness, especially in today's world. Do you think that people need a professional reinvention to experience true happiness?
I don't think everybody does. And I would even say that maybe most people don't. But I will tell you that the people who are listening to your podcast right now, the people who have ever thought about buying my book, the people who've listened to my podcast, the people who show up for you in what you're doing, they need one. And that's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. And what I found is the people who found me on what I call the Normal 40 highway, just this moment in time where you arrive at this place and something isn't what it used to be. There's some things they have in common. There's some things they really have in common. One, it's around the time they've hit their second decade of dedicating their life to a single thing, a single company, a single objective, a single career path. It's around year 20 where they wake up and like, well, I decided when I was 18, 16, 22, that this is what I'm going to do with my life. And now I've been doing it for 20 years and I don't know if I want it anymore. The problem is different than when you were 25 or 35. Now you've got something to lose. So the decision to do something else feels overwhelming and daunting and scary and lonely because who can you tell? Who can you tell? So going back to your question, does everybody need a transformation? No. But I think everybody hits this point in their life where they do or they will. That line is going to find them. So not everybody right now needs one. I didn't when I was 38. I didn't when I was 42. But when I reached age 44, guess what? Something was knocking. Something was knocking me around saying, dude, the best work of your life is right in front of you. And it's not going to be done where you're standing. So you can tolerate what you're doing and kind of waste some time while getting paid nicely, or you can go figure it out. And I think you know how my story changes from there. But I think there will be a moment in time for almost everybody where this urge for transformation finds you. Some do something, some don't. The people who do something are glad they did. The people who never muster the courage look back and wonder what might have happened if only they had.
Yeah. Was there a, and I think that's the process a lot of people go through. You and I went through it. A lot of people that, are in our atmospheres go through it, but for you, was there, because the money is a big thing. It's a driving factor. It's a big thing. And it can be a scary thing. And was there a specific moment in time? It doesn't have to be like a minute, but was there a specific period in time when you realized that it was the tipping point, and where you're like, I can no longer do this thing I've been doing for 20 years. And by the way, I think maybe 20 years in would be a great title for something in your world. That might be, maybe there's some correlation in a lot of things there. I think 20 years into your marriage, 20 years into your career, 20 years into, just side note, but was there a tipping point for you that kind of said, I've kind of decided and now I need to figure out the how? Or was it more of a gradual kind of slipping into something new?
So for me, it was really gradual. It was frustratingly gradual because I tried to avoid it. I tried to talk myself out of feeling the way I was feeling. I talked about it started around the age of 44, and that is about when it started. And at age 44, I was probably the youngest executive serving on the executive team of a public company. And I got to think about it actually as the second youngest because there's a gal on the executive team who's a little younger than me. But I had done well, is my way of saying that. I really had. I'd done well, and I'd worked hard to get there. I'd sacrificed a lot to get where I was. And by the way, it was where I told everybody I wanted to be. Everybody for the last 15 years of my life, I said, I want to be in that office. I want to be doing that job. I want to be leading this team. I want to be leading mergers and acquisitions for a public company. That's what I want to do. And then I had been doing it. I had been doing it for a period of time. And so imagine the frustration after doing that for 6 or 7 years when I'd arrive to my office, the one I had worked really hard to get to. And I would arrive early, and I prided myself on being the first one to the office. And I did all the things, turned on the lights. I grabbed the Wall Street Journal off the stoop of the corporate headquarters, and I took it up to the floor, and I put one copy on the CEO's desk. I took one in my office, read it. I made the coffee. I mean, I did all those things. That's just what I did. I was the morning guy. I'm a farm kid, right? So I'd read the newspaper, and I remember sitting at my desk for the first time, the desk I wanted, the desk I chased for more than a decade. Sitting there, I had left my nice house from my nice neighborhood, drove my nice car to the nice parking lot of the nicest building in all of Sioux Falls to the nicest office in the nicest building. And I sat there reading a kind of mediocre, drinking a mediocre cup of coffee, reading the Wall Street Journal. And I sat down and I, flushed the paper out like you do. And I sat there and I couldn't read a word because something in my gut was stirring. And I sat there and I put the paper down. I go, what the heck is this? And then I started looking around my office alone. Early morning, lousy cup of coffee, Wall Street Journal, exactly where I wanted to be. And I thought to myself, well, is this it? Is this it? I mean, this is what I said I wanted. So the question is this all I'm ever going to do? Is this all that I'm going to be? Because now I'm here. And then in the same moment, like within a split second, the other voice in my head said, knock it off. Dude, knock it off. This is where you wanted to be. This is where you told people you're going to be. This is where you want to be. Just enjoy it. Your job isn't to want something else. It's to make sure you do this job to the best of your abilities. And that voice was right too, by the way. That wasn't a wrong voice. So then what did I do? I said, yeah, shake it off, dude. Figure it out. Get your head back in the game. Go do it. And that would buy me about another 90 days, another quarter. I lived in a corporate culture, baby. Every 90 days, everything gets put back under a microscope, including self. So about 90 days later, I'd sit back down, I'd drive my nice car, leave my nice neighborhood to the nice office, and I'd flush open the Wall Street Journal, and I'd sit there and go, well, is this it? And then, like clockwork, I'd talk myself into shaking it off and getting back to work. And I did that for about 2 years. So when you asked, was it fast or slow? That was what it was. I kept talking myself out of wanting the change and talking myself into just protecting what I had. It was my life in real time, going from a life on offense, the life on offense that got me to that office, to a life on defense. Just keep it. Just hold it where it's at. Just settle in. And it's in that the Sunday pit started to get worse. My anxiety started to grow because I was living, I was done learning. I was on autopilot. I mean, all these things, just all the things that looking back were really obvious. But looking forward, I just thought something was wrong with me. I was broken. So I did that for a long time, a couple of years before it finally got to this point to where I had to do something. And what I did, Kevin, is I decided that one of the things I love to do is coach people. Now, I wasn't going to go be a coach and get hired outside of my company. I was going to go get my coaching certification and coach up young, up-and-coming executives inside of the company. And so I did that. I went, I got my coaching certification. It took a couple of weeks. It was a lot of work. And a couple of things happened when I did that. One, I discovered I really enjoyed it. Two, I discovered that I'm really good at it. Three, I loved that I didn't have a boss I had to please when I did it. I got to just be me. I didn't have a quarter end. I didn't have a metric. I mean, my whole mission was, can I help this person today? How can I show up for this person who's got some place they want to be, and how can I use my experience to help them get there? And that was it. That was my only job. And I learned that, okay, there is something to that. So that's what kind of got me going down the path of coaching. And I'm going to stop here, but then I do have a moment in time where all of a sudden it goes slow, slow, slow. And then all of a sudden there's a punch that cracks you in the jaw. And it's like, oh, okay, I get it now.
What was
the
that?
line. And this is the moment. Hanging.
You got to share that.
Yeah.
I know you will, but what was that moment? Was that, I mean, it built up over 2 years, talking yourself in and out of the thing your heart probably knew was the right move. And then what was the punch in the face that you got?
Yeah. But it was beautiful, in fact. So, um, the company I worked for, I led mergers and acquisitions for a company.
Mm-hmm.
And I was typically we were on the buy side. We were buying companies and bringing them in. Well, in early 2021, the company I was working for got approached for acquisition. So we entered a process, we executed a process, and our board of directors decided that this was in the best interest of our shareholders, and they were right. And so we were going through a process of selling the company. So now I was on the sell side. Well, when you're on the
Mm-hmm.
sell side of a deal, everything kind of changes because there's no certainty, because you know that at a point in the future, your boss is going to change, your ownership is going to change, everything about what you have become normal is going to change. And even though they're going to tell you nothing's going to change, spoiler alert for anybody who's ever worked for a company or is working for a company going through an acquisition, everything is going to change. Every single thing is going to change. When they say nothing's going to change, what they mean in the first month. But after that, everything's going to change. And that's how it works. I was eyes wide open about that. That's how it works. So we were going through this transaction. I'm the sell side M&A guy. I thought, well, what's the first thing that's going to happen to me is the day we sell, they've already got a mergers and acquisitions team that didn't include me, the buyer of our company. So I thought they were going to come in, say, Lon, thank you for your service. You've been great to work with, but we no longer need you. Here's a box. Here's your severance. See you later. So I was prepared for that. I was totally prepared for that to be the outcome. Well, the company that was acquiring us did something else that I wasn't expecting. They gave me an incredible offer, an offer to stay, an offer that used my strengths. They had listened to what I said and what others said I had skills with. And they had created a position for me that didn't exist that was very intriguing. The great part about that is I've got a job. I was kind of frustrated in the moment because now the obvious decision was once again removed. It wasn't obvious for me anymore. It's like, okay, now I've still got to decide. So at the same time, because the community knew we were going through an acquisition, I had been reached out to by other company in town to offer me a position in their company as president. Okay, so what was this moment? Here, you've got the setting. I'm in a job. I've got an offer to stay at the company I'm at. I've got an offer to take this new job. But in this background, I was doing this coaching thing. I was starting to write about it and talk about it. And I was learning what I sounded like when I got to sound like me. When I wasn't Lon, the corporate executive. When I wasn't Lon, the guy leading M&A. I was Lon, the dude who wants to inspire people to think differently about their life. And that was happening kind of in secret, but it was kind of happening. Not secret like secret in that I didn't know if I wanted people to know about it. It was still kind of private to me. It was scary to be that guy, to be me. It was scary. So my wife and I, I'm a South Dakota farm kid. And for those of you who are watching, behind me is a picture of the farm where I was born and raised. And I still go home to the farm. In fact, just 3 weeks ago, I was home planting corn. It's a part of me. It's not an act. It's who I am. And so my wife and I were taking a trip to Minneapolis at the time to watch George Strait in Little Big Town in a concert. And it was an all-day event. And on the drive there, it's about a 3-hour drive, my wife grabs my arm and she goes, "Hey, I want to talk to you about something." I'm like, "Oh, crap. This is never good when your spouse grabs your arm and says, never good." It's like, good. Okay, what did I do? I'm kind of reviewing in my head. I'm sure there was plenty of things she could be mad at me about. It wasn't that I was surprised that I was going to get a little pep talk. I was just wondering what it was going to be about. And I said, "Well, okay, yeah, let's talk." She goes, "No, not now, but sometime this weekend." I'm like, "Okay." And I just left it at that. And so we have a wonderful weekend. We go to Little Big Town and Chris Stapleton and George Strait. And we go back afterwards and we go to this little nondescript bar in downtown Minneapolis. And we're sitting at the corner. I mean, I can just picture it just perfectly. We're at the very corner of the bar. She's sitting on one corner, I'm sitting on the other. So 90-degree angle between us. And we're talking about life. And she said, "I want to talk to you about something." And I said, "Is this what you want to talk about?" She said, "Yeah." And she said, I know you're wrestling with something. I can see it and I can feel it even when you don't talk about it. I know you're going through a lot, and I know that change is all around you. And she said, but I want you to know I've seen you change. I've seen change in you. And I want you to know that when I see you talking to people and coaching people, you're the person I met. You're the person I fell in love with. I see you being you when you get to help people find their own path. Then she said, I don't think your future is with the company that's acquiring you. And I don't think your future is with this other company. I think your future is with Normal 40. And I know you're uncertain, and I know you don't have a business plan, but you're a teacher and you've got a gift, and I want you to use it. And if that means we've got to sell the house, we'll sell the house. And if that means one day that we need to stand in a food line, I'll be standing next to you. But I want you to do Normal 40. Literally, that's what she said. And I'm sitting in this bar crying. Driving there, I was weighing, that really wasn't even an option. It was this thing that I couldn't allow myself to do. It was this thing that felt irresponsible for me to go bet on myself like that, even though it felt right. But there was my wife setting me down saying, I see who you are when you get to be you. And when you get to be you, I like us better. I like us so much better that I want you to do that, and we'll do it together. And she was giving me something I didn't know I needed, and what every single person I've talked to don't know they needed, because it's a word they don't associate with this. She gave me permission.
Yes.
Not in the controlling sense of, oh, you can't do that, we need to afford this. No. Permission of, I will do this with you. Permission of, I see who you are when you do this and I like it. Permission to take a risk, to take a jump, to get in the raft with me and row in the same direction. Permission. It's all permission. And I needed it from her. And then I needed to give it to myself. And in that bar, at that corner, in that moment, she gave me permission. And then these words came out of my mouth as I thought about the company I work for. Maybe my work here is done. Maybe I'm not quitting. Maybe I'm not leaving people in a lurch. Maybe I'm just done. I'm the M&A guy. We're selling. My work is done. I don't have anything more to give to this company, and I don't have anything else to learn from it. I'm finished. I'm finishing here. My work is done. And in that moment, the weight of the world, I mean, it's literally like the movies. The weight of the world came off of me. I'm literally crying. I've got permission from my wife. I've just given myself permission to take a bet on me. And it all made this perfect sense in my mind for why this was the right time for me to go make a bet on myself.
So powerful. So powerful. As soon as you said the new company that acquired your old company had offered you a new job, in my brain I was thinking, that's even worse. That's the worst. That's the worst. Just tell me I'm fired so I can get on with it.
Yeah.
But then your wife gave you an incredible gift. It's harder to do on your own.
It's harder to do. Yeah. It's harder to decide. And I talked in my book that we're going to talk about. There's 5 Ds, then there's actually 6. That the Ds are the things that force you into a decision, and the last one is to decide. That just happens to be the hardest one. Yeah.
And I think we avoid that decision. If you would come home, if we go back to that day where, let's say they were going to let you go, the merger had dissolved your position, you could go home and look at your wife and be like, they decided for me. It wasn't my choice. They decided. And then you would cross that bridge, even though in your soul you had decided on some level. And then when they didn't do that, you wrestled with the responsible thing versus the sustainable thing. Because you would have still been on, I feel like you would have still been on that 90-day cycle of talking yourself in and out of it, right?
Without a doubt, 100% I would have. I look back at that decision with zero regret. I mean, not even an ounce of regret. Not because what I've done has been easy or glamorous or life-changing from a financial standpoint. It hasn't. Just because I know that I'm closer to the best work of my life now than I ever could have been working in a company with 30,000 others trying to make my way really trying to make money for shareholders.
Right. Right. What a gift. What a gift. Do you think, because we talk about this a lot, about the transition, the exit from old life to new life. And sometimes it's even a self you've outgrown, into a self that you want to rekindle. Do you think there's such thing as a graceful exit, or does it always have to feel like you're leaping into the abyss and just hoping that there's a sure footing that you're going to land on? What do you think? Do you think there's a way to do it that doesn't feel so scary and intimidating?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I tell everybody is you don't have to quit before you leave. You don't have to quit before you start, but you do have to start something if you ever really want to quit. And so what I tell everybody, look, if you can keep doing what you're doing, and most of the time people can, but sometimes it's not. I mean, their mental health is so far gone that they shouldn't even stay. But most of the time, people can start something before they quit. And if you can start something and get a little bit of clarity, remember what I said. I started by coaching for free on the side for bankers in my hometown because I used to be in finance and they wanted me then. I was coaching inside of my company, but then I started doing it outside the company. That was me just exploring. I wasn't making money from it yet, but I was answering some very important questions. Do I really like this? Am I good at it? Would I do this for free because of how it makes me feel? And the answers to questions like that were all pointing me towards yes. Now, what that meant exactly, that doesn't mean I had a business plan, but it meant I had a direction. It meant I had some answers. And so by the time I had left, I tell people I didn't have any clients, which is true, but I had an idea. I had a plan. I had a process. I had some things I was going to try. So I think for most everybody, if you can lean into those things before it's crisis, before either you get let go or you get just so burned out that you've got to leave, if you can lean into what's new early, it's actually going to make your work better. The thing people need to leave is trust in self to know that they'll be okay. And then the courage to pursue this next chapter. This courage is this big, deep thing, and it's hard. It does require courage. More courage. It requires more courage to leave than it requires to stay by orders of magnitude. And so the interesting thing about courage, though, is that the more you learn, so long as you only have this one job and you're not exploring anything else, and you've got this one job and you still have a mortgage and you've got kids in private school and you got payments and you got just obligations, the more you think about that job, the more you're tied to it. It requires even more courage to leave something when you have nothing else. But when you start something on the side, even if it's not paying you, if you start something on the side that starts to feel good and starts to build momentum, your courage to act different in your day job, to tolerate less, to set better boundaries, to say no to shit you shouldn't have to do anyway, your courage starts to show up in your day job. Because now guess what? You're learning, look, I can do this over here and I like it. And I think somebody will pay me for it. So your courage to do your day job, you actually get better at your day job, your regular job, your normal job, your W-2, whatever you want to call it. The job you're in, you get better at when you start doing something on the side because you get more courageous as a human. And it makes everything kind of feel better.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah, it does. I'm thinking back in my life. I'm like, yeah, like the most courageous I've ever been professionally is when I had something else that really fired me up, that really excited me or made me feel purposeful. And I think we're talking about identity, and I think you can relate to that, as our identity becomes latched to the thing we do at the building. Or for me, it was latched to a suit. The suit was my version of the office. And so that can be our identity, and we can lose our true identity, which is the identity that the man that your wife fell in love with, that she was gently reminding you of. Like, I see glimpses of that guy that was so interesting and maybe a little mysterious, but had a fire, and wasn't just going to work and checking boxes. There was actually an outcome of that, So talking to people, I know you talk to people that are in this situation a lot, where they may be considering a move or maybe recently recently moved or something like that. Do you think most people are at that transition point? Do you think we're chasing happiness, or do you think we're just trying to escape suffering or trying to escape a loss of identity? Is it a pursuit or is it an escape? I'm not sure which one.
It's a bit of both. It starts usually, unfortunately, as my work here is done. I'm no longer able to be happy in the work that I do, and every day I do a little bit more. I'm a high performer, and the more I do, the more is expected of me. And every time we hit goal, the goal goes up, and I've got to do a little bit more. And it's just this constant of, and by the way, those are things that 10 years ago used to excite you. Those are things that on your road to success, to be successful, you have to do those things. It doesn't make them bad, but they do. You reach a point in your life where they're just no longer motivation. They're annoying. And so there is that thing where you just kind of, you're no longer inspired by that. So it doesn't start by running towards something yet until it starts to burn. It starts to grind. And then you start to ask yourself the hard questions of, well, maybe I should just go do something else. Maybe this isn't it. And then at that point you can crack open. But here's the other really interesting thing, Kevin, that happens. And this is it maybe happened to you. It should happen to me. But when you're climbing, you're doing all those things in your 20s and 30s and even your early 40s, you're climbing, growing, clawing, scratching, traveling, sacrificing to get there, wherever there is for you. You're achieving and you're feeling good and everything's kind of happening for you. And usually just by being really good, somebody shows up when you're 25 and you're doing great work. Somebody shows up and says, here, Kevin, do this. You've done really well. Here, do this. You'd be good at that. And you're like, yeah, great. I'm your guy, baby. Here we go. And so now you're 26, 27, 28, claw, scratch, climb, travel, sacrifice, missing kids events, all the things. And now you're 30 and somebody shows up and says, here, Kevin, here, you're really good at this. Here, do this. And then same thing. Now you're 31, 2, 3, 4, 35. Somebody shows up and said, here, do this. And all of what you're supposed to do next kind of finds you. Yeah, maybe you switch companies, but it's in the realm of the work you do, and it's built off the reputation you've built in the 3 and 5 years behind you. Somebody shows up and says, here, do this. Well, all of a sudden, wait a minute. When you're 45 and you're starting to have these feelings about, I'm starting to burn out. I don't want to do more of this. And nobody's showing up and say, here, do this. Your phone doesn't ring. The off ramps aren't showing up. Well, wait a minute. That's a lonely time. What does that mean? What does that say about me? Now you start doubting yourself. Like, well, geez, maybe people can see that I'm on autopilot. Maybe they can see that I'm calling it in. Maybe they can see that I'm not performing like I used to, even though I think I am. And so now you've got this imposter, and it's real. It's real. The people listening have felt it. It's real. And so now you got the imposter. You don't know whether to run to or run from, and you're not sure what to do about it. And you're making too much money to quit. And by the way, you've got everything you wanted. Who are you going to tell? And there's the other problem. You haven't told anyone. I hadn't told anyone. My wife called me out. Had she not called me out, I don't know what I'd have done. I do not know. But that's kind of how it works. You run out of off ramps. People quit showing up and say, here, do this. And you're left in this place where you've got to make a decision on your own. And this is the point in your life where, if you're listening, please call Kevin. You can't do this alone. You shouldn't do it alone. You should find a mentor, find a friend, find a former boss, find a neighbor, I don't care, find somebody. But so for as long as you just let how you're feeling, what you're thinking about, and where you think you want to be someday, as long as you leave that in your head, it's going to leave you where you are. You've got to talk to someone, and you've got to start this process of just hearing what you sound like when you get to sound like you.
100%. I think it comes down to, the old cliche. I don't know if it's a cliche as much as an adage, but the 5 people closest to you are who you are, and I think, at least for me, in my experience, I couldn't make the decision hanging around people who were in the company, because they were yes people for the company. They couldn't see like what I saw. So I had to go hang out with entrepreneurs and coaches. And once I started hanging out with them, I got the affirmation, the attaboys, yeah, let's just do it. But also the here's how, here's the decisions, here's what might be coming up. Here's some, sort of signposts or pillar posts that may be coming your way. And that was the guidance that I needed at that time. So I do think that's it, is we sit in our own sort of, bubble, expecting things to change, and we're getting the same voices and the same opinions and the same this and that until we hit a breaking point. But and you came out and you wrote a wonderful book called The Trade, and you talk about, I think one of the things I admire the most about that book is I do think there's a lot of things out there that say just do it, hustle, grind, just take a chance, jump, like all those things. And I get it, nothing wrong with that. But one of the things that you really anchored in was that, one, this is not easy. And two, it is a trade. There's going to be an exchange of your future self for your old self. And after writing The Trade, going through that and actually verbalizing your experience, did your definition of success change at all, having written the book?
Yeah. I used to have a definition of success, and I don't anymore. I have a definition of freedom.
Ooh, and that's such a good.
And that, to me, if I can live my definition of freedom, that is success, I guess, if that's what we want. But it's just how I want to live. And my definition of freedom is very simple. It's to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. And that's it. Now, I choose to do that with people like you. I choose to do that in service of people who are where I was a few years ago. And I'm impassioned by that. I'm impassioned by awakening the latent potential in people's lives and letting them and inspiring them to act on it. That is what I'm hardwired to do. That is my lifetime's best work. And I'm doing it. But I do it when I want, how I want, with whom I want. And if I can control who I get to do life with and who I get to help, and I get to show up as me, and I get to sound like me when I sound like me, I don't know how success gets better than that. Do I have to pay bills? Yeah. Am I independently rich? No. Is there a way every day where I can be me, connect with people who need people like me, help them on their path, and by the way, make enough to live off of happily? You better believe it. You said something really important, and this is where this belongs, this point you made. When I wrote my book, The Trade, I didn't know what I was going to call it. It's not like I was like, I got this great title, let me write a book about it. I was well into the book before I realized that all of the things I'm talking about, everybody wants when they get to this place where nobody shows up anymore and says, here, do this moment we just talked about. Everybody wants something to magically show up. Something that pays better, looks good, gives them freedom, gives them control over calendar, don't have to obey their Outlook calendar. They don't have to answer texts at 8 p.m. They don't have to show up for board meetings. They don't have to meet quarter end, but yet they get to do all these things. And what you realize is that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So when it's not going to come and find you, you have to go find it. And in that process of finding it, whatever it is you find, it is going to require a trade. If somebody were to come up and give you that exact job, that you work less, you make more, you have more time, you don't have to answer texts, blah, 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 that's not a trade. That's the gift. And I'm telling you, if you wait for the gift, you're going to be waiting. So it's a trade. And with every trade, there's anguish. There's consideration. There's give and take. There's this question of, I'm not sure this is good, but I'm not sure it's bad either. It's this ultimate straddle. And a trade is not easy. It's not obvious. and it's not free. It is a trade. Those are the 3 elements of a trade. And so when you're going to leave the life you've got to go either to a new job, to a new company, to a new career, to branch out on your own, whatever, create a startup, join a startup, whatever. It won't be easy, obvious, or free at this stage of your life. It's going to require a trade. You've just got to figure out what's worth the trade and then stick to it.
Powerful. And I think that's something people miss, because I there's a lot of quote unquote influencers in this space. And I have a certain kind of feeling when I hear the phrase, if I had to start over again, and it's coming from a guy who's making $4 million a year. And no judgment against that. I like money just like everybody else, but I think there's a disconnection between what it's like to really start over again, the emotions around it, and the decisions behind it. I saw the trade in live in front of me for the first time when I was in Hollywood with a friend of mine, and it was during March Madness. We love to watch basketball, and we're at this little tiny sports bar having wings and a couple glasses of beer, and it's me and my friend and maybe 4 other people in the bar. So it's a small place. And then I don't know if it was planned or whatever, but Leonardo DiCaprio came in, and it was like, whoa, like, that's not just a little celebrity. That's like a big celebrity. Whether you like him or don't is irrelevant. And so, and my friend and I were, we were just sitting there. We were like, oh, that's pretty cool. There it is. And went back to our game. And the trade that Leonardo DiCaprio made was that within 15 minutes of him walking in, the bar went from empty and us enjoying the game to being shoulder to shoulder people. Paparazzi everywhere. His security outfit was there. And I was like, oh, so as you're talking, I'm like, oh, the trade he made for that was he can no longer just go have a beer and some wings and watch the game. He can't do that anymore without security, all these things. And I was thinking about my own personal trade. What was the trade, the trades that I made? It was really taking control of the future without knowing what the future might be. And that was something that I valued a lot, and not feeling like someone else had control of my time. I think the whole concept of the trade is very important for someone who's considering or is thinking about it or feeling it, because it's really easy for us to say, just do it, being on the side of the coin that we're on. It's much more real and much more constructive and much more beneficial to say, here are some things you're going to experience. And here's the reality of it is a trade. And there's going to be a cost and an expense and all those things. But were you surprised by any emotion that happened after you left mergers and acquisitions? Was there anything that came up where you're like, wow, I didn't see that coming? That's a feeling I didn't know was going to be there. Was there anything that surprised you?
I would say the first thing that surprised me about my journey was that I wasn't alone. I mean, honestly, Kevin, when I left, I had maybe 1,000 followers on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm just a dude, right? And I was going through my thing and kind of alone. And I started to write. Before I left, I started to write. So I was starting to build a little bit of a following that felt risky. But the first day I left, it was February 2nd, Groundhog's Day, ironically, 2022. And that was my first day of my adult life without W-2 income. And I woke up on that day and I went for a run. And then I went back and I started doing something which has been a habit ever since, but I wasn't at the time. It was my first day. I sat down and I wrote. I went to LinkedIn and I wrote a post that went something like, today's my first day without W-2 income. And it was scary. But I woke up this morning and my bed was warm. My wife was next to me. The carpet was soft. And my run this morning was a release of pure joy instead of a burn off of stress before I started my day. And I finished with, I don't know where I'm going to be in a month or a year from now, but day one's pretty darn good and I'm going to figure it out. And my world changed in that moment because a whole bunch of people who'd kind of been following or maybe found me in that moment realized, wait a minute, here's a dude who just did what I'm thinking about doing. Here's a dude who's actually quit. He did the most irresponsible but cool thing I can ever imagine. He quit while he was at the top of his game and he didn't have to. And I didn't expect that people would show up. And I'm not saying that because, oh, look at me. I'm saying that because I didn't realize I wasn't alone, because I didn't tell anyone. The point is, once I did it, I was shocked at how many people were like, dude, me too. How'd you do it? How'd you know you had enough? What'd your wife say? What'd your boss say? What do your kids think? Because they were still living at home with me at the time. My older two, I've still got one in the house. And so it was in that moment where I kind of, there again, remember the visual of me with Wall Street Journal, and I put it down and just kind of stare off. It was the same thing. I was getting all of these direct messages. Nobody commented on the post because nobody wanted to put their DNA on how they were feeling too. They didn't want the rest of the world to know that they were feeling that way. So they all sent me direct messages. They all got my email address and they sent me notes. And that's still how it works to this day, because they don't want the world, they're not ready to tell the world, hey, this guy's speaking for me too. The people in Normal 40 are like me, or more so, I'm like them. And I've got another dance in me and I don't know how to do it. So they come to me by direct message. For me, that was the biggest surprise. And then I guess the emotion, if I have to tie one to it, is to feel, I feel like right now in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I am exactly on mission. I'm using all of my gifts and strengths, all of my curses and downfalls, and I get to use them in a way that's helpful to others. And that is emotional. It's emotional on a daily basis. But it's also as rewarding as hell.
Yeah. I think most things that have that level of emotion are. That's a soul pull. That's a spiritual pull. That's amazing. If I know there's going to be people that read your book, they follow you, they listen to everything you do, read your words, and they're considering maybe a change. And they've kind of started that internal churn, that 90-day cycle. If you had one sentence and you could kind of lean into their ear and whisper that one sentence, what would that one sentence be that would help them on their way?
You are ready. You're going to be ready long before you permit yourself to believe that you're ready. You're going to be ready long before you accept that you're ready. You're going to be ready long before you accept that you should even be thinking about doing something else, doing something that looks so irresponsible on the outside, but lights you up on the inside. And I want you to know that if this is you, you are ready. And if this is you, you shouldn't do it alone. The best investment you will ever make in your life is the investment in yourself to talk to someone who can help you navigate this. It's the best thing I did. I hired a coach. When I was 40 exactly, I was running one of our divisions as the president of a division. And my CEO hired me a coach. And I was offended. I was offended that he thought I should have a coach. Literally, I'm not kidding. I'm like, oh my God, my CEO thinks I've only been in this job for a year. I'm really young. I'm over my head. I'm trying my hardest, but he thinks I should have a coach. Clearly, this is a sign of, performance improvement is needed. In hindsight, that's not at all what he was doing. He was being a good CEO. But I was offended. My point is I was offended because the people who are listening to your podcast, they are elite performers, man. The people who are listening to your podcast are not the people who create problems. They're the people who solve problems. They're the people who show up at work. They're the ones that people come to solve the problems for people at work, for the company, for the division, to open up the aperture, to make things happen, make things move. That's who these people are. And when they come home, guess what? They solve problems. They solve problems for their kids, for their spouse, whatever. They are the problem solver. That's what they do. So the last thing they're going to allow themselves to do is to be the problem. the last thing they're going to allow themselves to do is get help for themselves. The people who are listening to your podcast are probably horrible about asking for help. Absolutely horrible. And they know it,
100%.
but yet they're not going to do anything about it. So if I could whisper anything, you're ready and you don't have to do it alone.
It's great advice. Great advice. Lon, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Words of wisdom, always. I'd like to extend a great big thank you to Lon Stroschein for sharing his story and reminding us that success isn't about chasing someone else's definition. It's about having the courage to trade good for great and certainty for fulfillment. If you want to learn more about Lon's work, pick up his book, The Trade, and join the growing community of people designing their next chapter. Head over to normal40.com. And don't forget to subscribe to his Substack at normal40.substack.com for weekly essays that will challenge and inspire you to live life on your terms. Thanks for listening to Hustle to Harmony, and remember, it's never too late to make your trade.